is Block 6, the Great Depression, Section 4, the 100 Days, with section beginning, the National Industry Recovery Act. The National Industry Recovery Act and its the National Recovery Administration, which executed it, was one of the most far-reaching, if not the most far-reaching attempt of Roosevelt's New Deal to manage the economy and to hopefully grow it back. That the National Recovery Act is in the category, obviously, of recovery, and what it is a very far-reaching, progressive ideal of a program. This is something that the progressives have always wanted. They did not get it during the progressive era, but during the New Deal era, when they were back in power in Washington, they passed the National Industry Recovery Act, which established the NRA, the National Recovery Administration. And here you can see its symbol. These blue eagles cropped up all around the country as representatives of businesses that participated in the cooperation that the NRA asked them to do. And it says on the bottom, you can see, this is a progressive ideal of getting everybody on the same page, moving in the same direction. What's it say down there on the bottom? It says, we do our part. That if everybody just did their part in this great team effort of restoring and rebuilding the American economy, prosperity would come just around the corner. The Blue Eagle is so ubiquitous in American society that a National Football League football team in Philadelphia decides to name itself after the NRA Blue Eagle, and that's where the Philadelphia Eagles got their name. This organization is run by this guy. This is General Hugh Johnson. As you can tell, he won Time Man of the Year in 1933. And Hugh Johnson, as you can probably tell from his portrait, was kind of a brook no-nonsense, kind of hardcore administrator. If you did not agree with General Johnson's interpretation of things, then you could very quickly find yourselves on the outs. So what was this NRA? The NRA took it upon itself to look into every single major industry in the United States. Major industries, some of them are obvious: railroads, steel, oil, but the poultry industry, the meat industry, the wood industry, the automobile, and every industry that you can imagine fell under the aegis of the NRA. And what the NRA did was it worked with politicians and business leaders and labor leaders and came up with what it called codes of fair competition. And these codes of fair competition were guidelines that both capital, business, and labor would all follow. And the idea behind this is to somehow cooperate and restore the American economy. Some examples of the codes would be the maximum number of hours a person could work in a week, the amount of overtime a person would get, the safety conditions of a particular industry, what you could and could not have in a contract, how much or how little you could sell your goods for. One of the biggest things in the NRA was price controls. This had never been tried in American history before. That these codes of industrial competition said, okay, a ton of steel cannot be sold for more than X. A dozen eggs cannot be sold for more than X. We're not going to get much into economics here, but price controls always lead to two things. They lead to black markets, and they lead to shortages. Because if a business person cannot make a profit selling a good, he's either A, not going to produce it, and that creates a shortage, or he is going to hide his business from the government and operate on the black market. Be that as it may, the progressive impulse to control, to run, to have everyone cooperate certainly included these price controls in it. And the NRA, the National Recovery Administration, had price controls in every major American industry. A picture here, I found this cartoon, nothing better shows the progressive ideal than this cartoon. Here we have 3 different people wearing their big blue eagles proudly. NRA member, United States, the eagle's a patriotic symbol. We do our part. And here is the New Deal, the progressive ideal of government. Here's government represented by Uncle Sam. You can see what he is doing. He has his arms around. He is taking care of. He is working on the same team as the employee and as the employer. Now we are all on the same page here, watched over by benevolent Uncle Sam, who, if we only do what he wants us to do, if we only follow these codes of fair competition, everyone will be happy, satisfied, and the economy will certainly recover. Many people in the United States support the NRA. They support this progressive goal to get everybody on the same page, working towards the same goal to recover the American economy. Many Americans look at this, though, and they see this as government overreach. They say this is Roosevelt going a little bit too far. In 1935, a small business owner in Brooklyn by the name of Schechter. Schechter owned a small butcher shop. He owned his chickens, he butchered the chickens, he sold them in his neighborhood. And Schechter's butcher shop came under the aegis of the NRA. And you can see, and just going back for a moment, the businesses that participated in this would get this little sign, and they would be proud of themselves. We operate under an approved code and display the Blue Eagle as a symbol of our cooperation. What could be more progressive than that? We cooperate with the government. Here's our Blue Eagle to prove it. We are on the same page as Roosevelt. We are on the same page as the experts. We are on the same page as the technocrats. We are on the same page as the people who are going to recover the American economy. Back to Schechter. Schechter is the owner of a small poultry shop in Brooklyn. Like I said, he slaughters his chickens, he sells them in his local neighborhood. And he fell under the aegis of the National Industrial Recovery Act. And Schechter was forced to sell his chickens at a certain price. He was forced to have his employers work certain hours, etc., etc. Schechter said this was a violation of his constitutional rights. Schechter says the government can't tell me how much to charge for my chickens. And the case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And in the court case, Schechter versus the United States, the Supreme Court ruled against Roosevelt. It ruled in favor of Schechter, saying that Schechter's little tiny butcher shop had nothing in the world to do with interstate commerce. And if you remember from your Constitution, the Constitution says that Congress may only regulate interstate commerce, commerce between the states. And the court ruled that Schechter's little local poultry operation in no way affected or implied interstate commerce at all. And the National Recovery Act, or most of it, was struck down as unconstitutional. The whole thing. The price controls, the boards, the codes of fair competition was all struck down as unconstitutional. Of course, that angered Roosevelt, and he would try to legislate around it, and then later in his administration, he would go on and attack the Supreme Court itself. But that is the story for another lecture. That is the National Industry Recovery Act and the National Recovery Administration, the NRA. It is a far-reaching progressive attempt to regulate and to control is kind of a negative word, to regulate the American economy back towards recovery.